So I'll just guess we'll give it a moment, Motti, for any stragglers to start, and then we can kick off soon.
Great.
So I guess we're probably a minute in. Should we get things started now, Motti, do you think?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, after you, if you'd like to kick off.
Yeah, sure. So, hello everyone. Thank you for joining. Really exciting to be here today. We will start with a short intro and then get it on. So, with your permission, I'll be starting here. So I'm Moti. For those of you that are not familiar with me, I'm within Vicarious team for almost 5 years now. I'm heading the EMEA region, and here with me is David. David, please go for it.
And my name's David Gray, so I'm Solution Architect Team Lead for EMEA. So I basically work with everything from a technical perspective in terms of providing demos, working with assisting partners, and working with assisting customers, anything and everything from a technical perspective, basically. So what we wanted to do today is really just give a bit of a taster for vRx as to what it's all about. So I guess probably, Motti, if we could start just to help people understand what vRx is all about, could you perhaps give us a little intro as to what vRx actually is, what we're aiming for, and perhaps some of the challenges that we came to address?
Yeah, of course. I'll be more than happy to do that. Moment. Yeah, sorry. So, very simple and basic. The vRx is a vulnerability management platform. Okay, it finds, it's prioritizes, and it's remediating vulnerabilities within IT environments with significant attention to the remediation side. So, everything around remediation, this is something we take very seriously. And it's all happening in a very simple, friendly dashboard, which provides real-time visibility on everything that matters in that context of the vulnerability journey. That's the vRx.
So if you could just tell us a little about the challenges that we're really aiming to address there, and in terms of vulnerability management, what do most people see as those challenges?
Yeah, sure. Let me tell you about let's say the basic needs and main challenges that the vRx basically addressing. So again, keeping it basic, simple, vulnerability management was always there as a quite basic elementary need. But let's say that until 5, 6, 7 years ago, it could have been handled with manual basic protocols, basic tools, nothing too sophisticated. It was still under control. In the last few years, numbers of vulnerabilities are booming. You know, it's now it's around 50,000 per year, every year, adding and adding and adding. At the same time, the exposures and the exploits are becoming much more diverse, more sophisticated, more advanced, even innovative, you can say, which requiring more expertise to address it. Now, within that, we see more and more exploits without any security patches to be addressed for. Let's call it unpatchable threats. Now, this is on the rise as well. And finally, and I'm sure you were not expecting to attend a session, especially IT session these days, without hearing it, AI. Unfortunately, we already see AI being used to create vulnerability-based exploits. In some cases, even in like organized campaigns, exploiting campaigns based on AI. And the results, and again, unfortunately, are quite concerning. We see that it's fast, We see that it has a very successful high rate for managing the exploits. And of course, this is something that we need to take under consideration. These are the main challenges. Now, that being said, the vRx was developed to provide a simple platform, works in real time, showing you instantly security vulnerabilities and their potential impact, and let's say exploitability probability on the environment, keeping you focus on those 20%, give or take, that has the highest potential impact, negative impact, of course, on your environment. Now, this is with real-time dynamic view and real-time analysis. Then, and now we are getting, to the interesting stuff, as the platform provides high-end remediation capabilities. So we are not only advising the issues, like we see many other platforms that gives you a nice view on everything that you should be concerned of, but then say, okay, good luck, basically. So we are definitely not there. We are not going to say good luck. We are going to make sure that you will have a good luck with the tools we are providing you for remediation. So the tools, the set of tools, basically the main thing is an automated patch management alongside with high-end scripting and also virtual patching capabilities to address those non-patchable threats that I mentioned. Bottom line, end-to-end management and remediation solution works in real time, significantly shortening the time it takes you to understand what you have in your environment, what findings you should address urgently, and finally provide you the set of remediation measures to perform the fix or at least mitigation and close this cycle with maximum risk reduction impact. That's it.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you, Moti. And I guess what I'll do now is I'll give you a little demo so that you can see what the platform actually looks like, and give you a taster for what we can do and how we can approach what Moti's talking about. Please, if there are any questions, we're more than happy. We can cover those off towards the end of the call. Please do ask any questions if you have them. And of course, we're more than happy to have more in-depth sessions as well with you. But basically, what we're looking at here is the dashboard that is designed to give an overview into the environment of giving visibility into your applications, the assets, the operating systems. We're highlighting new assets and applications as we identify them, along with additional dashboards that you can click on these and drill down into your application-focused dashboard or an asset-focused dashboard. We've got information about the risk level of the assets and whether they're online or offline. And down towards the bottom here, you can see information about the vulnerabilities and the trends over time, so that you can see the performance over time, so we can see detection and mitigation events of the environment. We also have more detailed breakdown into the vulnerabilities and all of those CVEs, so that you can see detail around the threats, and the more detail around the critical, the high, the medium, low severity threats. Now, the way we build this information is we basically have an agent that we install on the endpoint we manage. So we, as you can see here, we can manage Windows, we can manage Mac, we can manage Linux. So we cover all those major operating systems. That agent, once we install the agent, which we can do through a number of different mechanisms, that agent will then start to perform an inventory of the assets. So we're really looking to understand information about some of the basic information around IP addresses, maybe, some of the other information around last logged in user or domain name. We're looking at other asset information, maybe motherboard or BIOS information. We then start to look at information around the operating system, the applications that are installed. And as you can see here already, we have a large catalog, a large library of third-party applications that we can manage. We then look to understand any updates that might be available both for operating system and for applications. And we could actually apply updates from here. I'll not do that just at the moment. We also then use that information to understand what vulnerabilities we have present within the environment and the severity levels. So we do have a cloud-based platform hosted in US, hosted in Europe, in Germany, and also in Singapore, if I remember correctly, for Asia Pacific. So we have different hosting locations around the world. Essentially, as long as the agent has internet connectivity, we can manage these assets wherever they might be. And in turn, this also gives us real-time visibility so that as new vulnerabilities are published, you can see and you know within a matter of minutes, an hour or so, whether your assets are vulnerable to these new CVEs or not. We're not doing a point-in-time scan. We're doing a near real-time, giving near real-time visibility. And it's all this information that gives the dashboard that we see when you first log in. Now, one of the areas that I didn't talk about was what we then do next is we then start to use that information to perform a risk prioritization, contextual analysis to understand what the level of risk both of the applications are and of the assets. So the aim here is to really simplify the risk management process to help focus where you can have the most effective reducing risk. And we do that through the use of what we call X tags. So that's using, first of all, threat information feeds. So we're looking at maybe whether we have known exploited vulnerabilities. We then use dynamic usage information. So whether the applications are frequently used, for example, whether they need admin rights, are they active on the network? We then have slightly less dynamic information. So whether we've got patches available, for example, is there social media activity about the vulnerabilities? Are we vulnerable to or exposed to certain types of attack, RCE, database, or denial of service type of attacks? And we use that information to generate a risk score, which is where we come up with the high, medium, and the low risk. So that's really to help you focus exactly where you can have the most effect. And we can use these to also apply filters. So, for example, we can say out of the high risk applications, we can see 6 of those have patches available right now. So these could be patched and that would more than likely reduce the risk. But we can take it a step further. You can also combine it maybe with known exploited vulnerabilities. So we have 5 high risk applications that have known exploited vulnerabilities, but they also have patches available. So really good candidates that we can then start to apply patches, reduce risk, and start to improve your security posture. So you can see we then start to move into the application dashboard where we have a number of different filters that we can apply based on asset groups, asset name, the X tags that I was talking about. We can look for specific CVEs if that's what we want to understand. Where are we affected by that? You can look for particular applications, and for each of these applications, you can see straight away whether we have a patch available or not. So we can see whether we have those patches available and start to look at what we want to do to address it. So in this example, yeah, we have patches available. Where we don't have patches, there are other things that we can do. In terms of additional information, we also provide an analysis around why the application is the risk score it is. So these are the X tags that come into play. So we can see that we've got patches available, we've got exploits, known vulnerabilities. So a number of different X tags. You then have information about the versions present in the environment, where it's installed, and associated vulnerabilities. So for these CVEs, we also then do give additional information so that if you do want more detail around what that actually means, then we do have that detail. So you can see very easily what the vulnerability actually means and really get down into the detail for that. We also have links through to our vSociety website where we have additional information and links to vendor advisories and so on. But just coming back to the recommended treatment, if we then want to start remediating and applying patches, which of course the remediation is what we're all about, we can do that through the patch management, and we can come to select the patch or patches that we want to apply. And you can see, again, we've got medium risk here. So we'll start to reduce the risk. And from the previous screen, this will update in just a moment. We'll have Wireshark already selected. We will then have, you'll see here, we have the patches that I'd chosen on the previous screen, along with the associated assets. We can then choose to schedule that now or at some point in the future. Hit finish, we push that patch out. That's now deploying those patches and remediating and updating those issues. So that's a manual approach to the remediation. We then also have the ability to automate this process. So the automation obviously is where we're aiming to ensure that you can simplify the process rather than doing it manually, doing a hands-on activity. We aim to simplify it through automating as far as is possible. And we can automate updates for the application. We can automate OS updates. We can run scripts or other activities. The app updates and the OS updates, they operate in a very, very similar approach. We can look either at the apps that have updates available right now, or we can look at the applications that we've identified within the environment. So, for example, we can start to build application update groups, whether we've got patches available or not, and start to build that for the future. We can then specify the severity level. So you can look at whether maybe we're just interested in the critical and high severities, or we can look perhaps at all of those severity levels. So medium, low, not applicable. If we need a restart, we can also put that into place. So typically for OS, we can allow user interaction to cancel or to postpone or snooze. We can also add customized messaging to keep users informed as to what's actually happening. We can then select the asset or asset group that we're looking to deploy to, and then so maybe test systems, head office, branch office. We've got lots of different ways that we can set those groups up. And then we can specify when we actually want that to run. So do we want it to run daily, weekly, or monthly, or on a custom basis, maybe every second Wednesday of the month, so just after Patch Tuesday. So we can set lots of different options there, including when do we want it to run, what time of day. And we can also, with the automations, we can bring into play other activities. So maybe we can also do OS updates, or we could do scripts that we can run, which the scripts basically extend the functionality for what we can do in terms of remediation of vulnerabilities. So for looking at configuration type vulnerabilities, we can detect, we can remediate. We can perform operational activities. We can perform Windows updates, for example, and we have a library of these scripts. We can install software. We can remove software. So, for example, we could upload a file. So an example here, I've uploaded a file to perform an installation. We can upload that file and then run the installation. So lots and lots of different options there. There's basically a lot of different flexibility that we have around the automation of these scripting, the scripts and the patching. Now, I will just touch on a couple more things before we wrap up the brief session and come on to any questions. So one of the things that I did touch on was the fact that we can create groups. So we've got a lot of flexibility in terms of how we create the groups. We can create dynamic groups where the assets come in and out of the groups, and the assets can exist in multiple groups at any point in time. So we have all sorts of different filters that we can use. We can use Active Directory groups. We can use IP addresses. We can look for applications or operating systems. So we can see maybe if we're pending restart. So if an asset needs a restart after having a patch applied, we can trigger a reboot. So we have a status of pending reboot, for example, which I think we should have a group of pending reboot. So we can see we have a couple of assets there that we want to reboot, that we can schedule and automate a reboot at a time of your choosing. The groups, of course, can then be used as filters so that we can filter and see the risk status of those groups of assets. And we do have a full suite of reporting and role-based access control and logs that we can use for troubleshooting and investigating. So we do have a lot more that we can show you on the product, and we'd be more than happy to do so. But I think for the moment, we're wanting to keep it relatively short. So I guess at this point, it's probably worth asking whether we have any questions. Actually, before we do that, perhaps Motti, if you could just talk a little about some of the benefits and just recap some of the areas I've covered off, and then I think we'll move on to any questions and cover off those at that point, if that's okay. You're on mute.
You can hear me now?
We're good.
We're good. Okay, so very briefly, talking about, you mean like more like a top pain point we're addressing and benefits, right? Yeah, so what I can think of a few main points following also the demo and what I said before that. I think the one of the most important things is that we are providing a streamlined, simplified process. I mean, forget about the need to take the network scanner and to have a scan and then analyze the result of the scan and share it with maybe a different team for the patching and so on and so forth. And after the patching, verify again with another scan that the patches were applied correctly and now the risk was reduced and so, no. So what we are providing is this platform working on real time, making it all streamlined, all teams working together on the same dashboard. So the alignment and the syncing is much, much, much better. So simplification and streamlining of the entire, let's say, vulnerability journey inside the organization, from finding it to fixing it and so on, I think this is one of the key points. Another key point I can think of is the fact that we are completely, covering, I mean, complete coverage, let's say, that, I mean, you don't need like 5 agents with 3 different tools to cover everything. And when I say everything, I mean the same agent, our agent, covering Windows, covering Linux, covering Mac OS machines. And the same agent is not only covering those like common applications, but also quite unique or less common third-party apps that we are covering, for all visibility, analysis, patching. So the fact that, this agent, this one tool covers it all, I think also add to our value. And maybe last point, among the many others that I can mention, but I think that the demo shows it all. But the last point is the virtual patching. This is definitely one of our unique, let's say, even identifier now. People identify us with the ability on top of the regular patching and the automated patch management to have this virtual patching capability to address those constraints that, once you have a case that you cannot use a patch or patch is not available, or you prefer from your reasons, operational reasons or other reasons, not to apply a patch at that moment, now you can address this kind of use case and significantly reduce the risk around it with our virtual patching technology. You don't need to reboot the machine. You don't have any impact on the business performance on that. So I think this is one, again, additional key point that we can present. I will satisfy with those 3 points for now.
Great, thank you, Motti. So with that, I guess, do we have any questions from the audience at the moment?
I see on my board a few questions, but let me know if you see anything.
Okay, now well, let's start with if you have something, let's start with that, Marty.
Yeah, I got a question. What if there is a bad patch? This is how we called it. What do we do then? I guess it refers to sometimes those cases where the patch is not performing as we want, or maybe even a corrupted patch, or this kind of scenarios. David, can you address it?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question, and one that we do get very often. So that let me just I'll perhaps show you on the screen here. So that it very much depends on the patch, and we've got a few different approaches that we can take with this. So typically we would approach this through the use of the scripting. Now, if we're talking about maybe a Microsoft patch that we have problems with, which is the most common, I guess, what we can do is we can use the scripts to roll back the Microsoft KB where it's permitted. Another approach might be to actually create a restore point on workstations before we do the patching. But we can also remove packages. Or if it's a third-party application, we may just want to do the removal, just uninstall the software and then reinstall the software. There was actually prime example for this was outside of our control was, for example, the CrowdStrike update that was released a couple of years ago. Yeah, and we actually developed a script to help customers recover from that situation. So, so we've got mechanisms within the platform for where we perhaps are deploying the patch, and also for the removal. Now, just to add to that, we do also validate the patches and ensure that there is no tampering taking place of those patches. But we'd always recommend that you test in your own environment anyway.
And this is done preliminary before we are uploading it or enabling it to the platform, right?
Yes, yeah. I mean, we would always recommend that you test in your own environment, simply because there's so many different parameters that can come into play. But yeah, very good question. Very good question.
Okay, so I have a second one, and I think that would be good. And this I want to address it actually because it's I'm dealing with it on the daily. We both did. It's asking if we are also supporting like a multi-tenancy model, and which address also for MSPs and MSSPs. So the answer is definitely yes. We started it like 1 year, maybe between 1 year and 1.5 years ago. And we see this is one of the most going verticals for us. So now we can address multi-tenancy. And by the way, in many cases, it's also good for big companies that needs to have segregation between different groups of users within the organization. But in this case, what I'm replying is for more like separate dashboards or multi-tenancy dashboard that enable those service providers to provide service to all the customers, but with, of course, dividing between one customer to another. And by the way, on that note, if we're already talking about it on the technical side, also on the commercial and billing side, monthly consumption based, all of those common models that such service providers often need or use. So definitely we are there. This is part of our ongoing activity, and be our guest. Just check us, on that as well. That's it for me, for my question. I see a few more, but I'm not sure that time allows us to go with that. So just saying generally, any additional questions, we'll be happy if you will address it separately by email or other platform, LinkedIn, whatever is comfortable for you. We'll be more than happy to address it.
No, I see no further questions at the moment.
Okay.
So I guess if there are no further questions, thank you for your time. It's been great doing this, and we'd be more than happy, as Motti says, to go into more detail and cover things off if you do have further questions or want to see the platform in more detail.
Thank you, guys. Wish us all a great 2026, and take care.